Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, and we're still waiting on the cold front, I think, right? Is it still...
It's warm and humid.
Goodness gracious, yes. But thankfully, that's the blessing of having a Lexus here. We can be inside, have the AC on, and this is another episode of Pickup Lines presented by Gamez Law Firm, Integrity Roofing and Siding, and the Sabinal Group. And again, we are inside the Lexus RZ 450E, courtesy of North Park Lexus of San Antonio and North Park Lexus at Dominion. And today, it has happened again. It has happened again. All these years I was on TV and in the media, and I thought I had a handle on what was happening in San Antonio, and then I learned about another nonprofit that's been around for a long time.
20 years.
20 years this year.
We got a proclamation from the Bexar County Commissioners just today. 20 years.
Oh, congratulations. That happened just today.
Yes.
So this is Tanya Henderson, I should mention. She's the board president of Each One, Teach One, and you even brought a visual aid.
I did. Look
To show off the logo here, Each One, Teach One. And essentially what you guys do, correct me if I'm wrong, but you help adults, I think it's in most cases adults, that cannot read. You teach them a skill that I think many of us, myself included, take for granted. I mean, I'm reading the screen right now as we talk. But there are many people who come to this building, and we'll talk about your building, by the way, in a minute, that cannot read.
Absolutely. And many of them have high school diplomas, believe it or not. And yet they cannot read or write or do math. So
then how did that happen where you perform well enough to get a high school diploma, but you cannot read?
I think this is just me speculating,
sure,
that we had, a lot of initiatives in the school system around no child left behind.
I see.
And so maybe you were good enough that they kept passing you along. But we literally have a woman who is probably in her 40s that graduated with a high school diploma and could not read or write her children's names.
I couldn't read the diploma that she got.
Probably couldn't read the diploma that she had. And so it came to light one day, and, it's very emotional and shameful if you can't do what you think you should be able to do with a high school diploma.
Well, I get it. And you have clients or students here that have kids and everything, and I can only imagine just trying to get through the course of a basic day, a Tuesday, for example. How many times do you need reading? How many times does reading come into play in whatever you're doing? Driving a vehicle, going to appointments, making a meal, whatever the case may be. So, and I read, so this started about 20 years ago, and I understand that it started with, I guess it was the founder was helping a gentleman with his taxes. Yeah. And forget the numbers and the IRS and all that. This gentleman, I guess, just had a hard time reading the basic tax forms.
Absolutely. And so it started as, well, let's help people read their tax forms. And what they found out is a lot of people just couldn't read at all. And so she shifted the focus from tax preparation and assistance to let's teach people how to read and write.
And I read I have to write it. I wrote it down because the statistic I read earlier today, the numbers in Texas are not fantastic, but in San Antonio, I had to read it twice. Mm-hmm. In San Antonio, 1 in 4 adults reads below a 5th grade level, and that's trending in the wrong direction. Is that still the case?
That's still the case.
I'm going to say it one more time. 1 in 4 adults in San Antonio read below a 5th grade level, which is, 10 years old, something like that?
Yeah, it's functionally illiterate.
Right.
Yeah, 19 years old, you're functionally illiterate, and you need a lot of assistance to get by in the world. So, yes, and that's a real number, and it came out, when the census was being done, and there were studies being done in the city. So we know it's an accurate statement, but it's a tough one to swallow. Yeah. So you've been here, the organization, the nonprofit's been around for a little while, because you were tied to a church at one point, right? Yeah, I believe it was, I want to say Antioch Baptist Church. And that's where they just wanted to help, their parishioners. And so the founder said, well, let's just take this on the road and let it become an adult literacy organization at that time. So I didn't come into play until about 2010, 2011. When it became an established nonprofit. 501c3 nonprofit, and I was asked to become a board member, and I said sure, not knowing anything about being on a board. So were you an educator? What is your background? No, my background is in financial services. Okay. And at the time I was in the human resources department at Wells Fargo. Okay. And so that's how I became a member of the the party of volunteers
Right.
that really tried to help people, because she says, we'll give you the materials, but help somebody one-on-one and you'll know what it's like.
And that's essentially where the
life.
name of the organization, it's Each One Teach One, which I want to show the logo again. The name of the organization itself, I think, has a unique story.
Well, it came from an old African-American proverb, and it really was all about education.
Right.
And if I know how to read and I teach somebody else how
Right.
to read, then together we'll both do well. So it was really about this partnership between a learner and a volunteer, a tutor.
But did it not go back to the time of slavery as well?
It was absolutely at the time of slavery, when you were not allowed to read in many places. So
to do it in secret, like
You have to
you
do
had
it
to
in
learn in
secret.
secret. But the idea was that one person learns how to read. Presumably, a slave would learn how to read,
Yes.
and it would be their responsibility, he or she, to find another person and then teach that
them.
skill. I guess in private.
Sometimes, and sometimes it was okay to be above board
Right.
because they had, slave owners that allowed it.
But each
most
one
of the
teach one. That's
time-
literally good. It traces back to the time of slavery.
Absolutely. That's how far
Unbelievable.
back this goes, right?
Unbelievable. Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. But as we speak, so we're outside your building right now, which you drive up to it or you walk into it, and you immediately recognize that it at one point was a firehouse.
It was a firehouse.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's only one level, so there's no pole.
She didn't slide down to come see me when I walked in or anything.
That's exactly right.
But
yes.
there is a cool factor to it. But you were saying how this building kind of came into your life years ago, right?
Yeah. The original executive director found it. It was some of the property that had been abandoned that the
Right.
city owned.
Right.
We purchased it, and it was just a wreck, right? But we had a whole group of volunteers who came in, did the painting, did the renovating,
Right.
did all the important stuff, and so now we have a facility.
Looks great. And
do
as
it.
we speak, I know there was, I think, a gentleman in there just a little while ago getting, being tutored and what have you. And
in
so,
math, today is math day.
oh, today's math day.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I may need to go in there after I'm. I have 3 teenagers, and when they ask me to help them with their homework, sometimes I feel so unintelligent because I see that and I'm like, "What language is this?
I understand.
I can't do math anymore."
I understand.
Anyway, but enough about me. Let me ask you this:
Yes.
how do you teach? I mean, just in the most simplest terms, how do you teach an adult how to read? How does it start?
You start by meeting them where they are. You really have to understand who they are, what they are trying to accomplish, and you sit down, you figure out where they're starting from. Are you at phonics? Are you at, a first grade reading level, 8th grade reading level?
Right.
So we get to know where they start from, and then we sit down and we get to know them and teach them through a process and make sure that they feel welcomed and that there's nothing about what they're doing that should make them feel ashamed.
Because I would think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles initially is breaking through the guilt or the shame that must be associated with realizing I'm 20, 30, 40 years old, whatever, and I can't read basic text.
That's exactly right. So our staff is amazing, by the way, but the staff makes them feel very welcome. They make sure that they understand that we're going to go at your pace.
Right.
This is for you. Where do you
It's
want to get
individualized.
to? It's very individualized, and we're here for their success. And
Yeah.
I think that makes all the difference, and they feel much more comfortable. They feel like I'm not the only one, and they feel as if people care.
And that could take maybe weeks in some cases, or it could
Months,
take years.
Yes, it depends on where they start from. And I remember when I first started being a volunteer tutor, there was a woman who came out of the penal system. She was recommended by them to come to us, and so she decided she's going to commit to this, and she was reading at a 3rd grade level.
Because there are statistics that show illiteracy and criminal activity
Very
are very
highly
much linked.
correlated.
Highly correlated.
Highly correlated. And so starting at a 3rd grade level, you're not going to get there in a couple of months.
No.
It took her 3 years, but she was dedicated. With her volunteer tutor, she eventually got her GED, and she went on to one of our colleges. It may have been at Alamo College, but don't
That's
quote me.
fantastic, though.
Isn't
That's a
that
great
right?
success story.
But it takes time.
It does take time. And is this once a week? Is this every day? Like, how often are your students coming in here?
Well, we ask that the students do 2 hours a week with their volunteer tutor.
Okay.
But they can do as many as they would like. And they can do homework at home.
Okay.
So it really is about how much time they can commit to the process.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
You can learn much more about this, by the way. So I'm going to show, for those of you who might just be joining us here, it's Each One Teach One. That's the logo right there that we talked about a minute ago in the name. But the website is EOTOSA. So for Each One Teach One essay, EOTOSA.org. And you can go on there, and there's like testimonials, and it talks more about the mission, and it's got your leadership and everything on there, which is just amazing. Because again, I walked in here and I felt semi-guilty that I didn't realize that this was here, and it's been around for this long.
I know, and that's like my campaign this year as the board president. People have got to know that we exist, so we're happy that Ernie is doing pickup lines.
Thank you. Well, I always used to say on the air, and it's true, that there is, whatever your situation may be, and I believe this very strongly, there is help out there. Yes. There are resources out there in San Antonio. You just have to know how to find them.
Exactly.
And this is a classic example of something where, again, 1 in 4 adults in San Antonio read below a 5th grade level. So thank goodness. It's like I say sometimes with some of these nonprofits, you wish you didn't have to exist, but thank goodness you're here.
Yes. And, you know, there are so many of our students that, there was one in particular, he says, I didn't know how I was going to get to my GED. I found Each One Teach One, and I felt like I could breathe. He's one of the folks who is receiving his high school equivalency here in May.
That's fantastic.
Him along with his mother, by the way.
You're kidding me.
We change families' lives.
So it's generational stuff.
It's generational stuff. And the number one indicator of how successful a child is going to be is how well their parents are literate. So it matters.
Right.
It matters generationally.
So you do not have a personal link to this in that reading, you've always been able to read, and this is not something like you dealt with earlier in your life. But what was it that attracted you to this mission, to this nonprofit?
Yeah.
Because I would imagine it can be challenging sometimes. It can be frustrating for the student that maybe just not picking it up.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot of repetition. What was it about this that appealed to you?
Well, I've had a lifelong love, I guess, of books and learning. And, you know, they had me at redfish, bluefish. So I've always been a reader. And then I started deciding, well, you know, I can make up stories as well. And
this brings us to the show and tell portion of the show. This is why I asked the guest to bring us something. Don't tell me what it is. I know it's a book. But we can go ahead now with this. It looks like a hot, steamy romance novel.
It's a hot, steamy romance novel because romances are the #1 published type of book in America. And so I said, well, I'll give it a shot.
Wait a minute, because I just looked at the author's name, and Tanya Henderson is
me.
You.
That is my pen name.
What?
And Passion was one of the first books I'd written.
Let me see this.
And I haven't written...
Scandalous. Yeah. Look at that.
I haven't written since 2008, but it was something that says, let me give it a shot, right? I like trying new things. I like learning. And I learned a lot just writing books.
Okay, I'm just reading the back here. Passion, an irresistible woman with a good heart and a regrettable past, tries desperately to leave behind the lifestyle she seemed destined to live. In the recently widowed Reverend Jordan Waters, Passion sees hope and salvation. But I won't give it all away. Is this based on anybody?
No, it's
real life?
Completely
made up.
Yes.
Passion.
But I used to read romance novels.
Okay.
And I said I could write one of those, and so I did, and I finally got published, and it was interesting, but it became like work, so I don't do a lot of them, and you may not even be able to find my books, but that was the problem that I wrote.
No, I was going to ask you, like, can people get this on Amazon?
I doubt it. I think it's out of print at this point because it's like 1998-ish. Something like that.
Who's the couple here? Do we know who these people are?
No idea.
Those are models?
Yeah, models they found, and I'm like, they look pretty good.
You got my attention.
So it's a bodice ripper, and I said, how am I going to tell my mother? But anyway, she was very proud.
I was going to say, then there's that. Super cool. So if you can find it wherever books are sold, Passion, Tanya Henderson, are you going to do some more writing?
I don't know.
Okay.
It might happen. But my whole point is,
yes,
I love books.
Love books. Seriously.
Love reading. And so when I found out that this organization existed, even before it was a nonprofit, and what they were doing was helping adults learn how to read, I could not imagine not knowing how to read and being able to function well in my community. And so That's how it became so important to me.
Yeah.
I started tutoring. I saw the impact that it makes. I saw that some people can't make it through it, right?
Really?
Because it's difficult. Life happens to adult learners, and so they may not make it all the way through. But when they do, you just really want to celebrate them.
How much more difficult is it trying to learn to read as an adult than it is as a child?
Oh, it's tough. It's really, really tough because you don't have the dedicated time. You don't go to school all day.
Right.
You have to go to work all day. And then after work, I have to go pick up my kids. And then I have to go to tutoring or, figure out how to a way to do it over Zoom. Right.
Yeah.
So I have to make time. And a lot of these folks just do not have time because they're busy adulting, quite honestly.
Is there such thing as a typical student here?
No. I really can't tell you that there's a typical student. We have ages, in the teens, but most of them are between 30 and 50.
Okay.
A lot of them are single parents. A lot of moms. So I will say that there are more of some, but we get just various ages and
you won't turn anybody away.
We don't turn anyone away, because how could we?
No, I can't imagine that you would, but I just, because this obviously costs money. So you get, and you're a nonprofit obviously, but so you have donors or people that these volunteers that have been so great over the years help keep it going.
Yeah, and we really need more of a donor base.
Yeah.
We've been heavily dependent on government grants and love them for it. But, you're one government decision away from not having funding. So, one of the reasons I'm here today with you is to say that we need friends. We need friends who want to sponsor, students. It takes $1,000 or more a year to sponsor any one of our adult learners. And so if we could get someone to sponsor us for $1,000 every year or $10 a month or $100 a month every year to help build up our base so that we can ensure our operations continue. That's what we're really here trying to accomplish.
That's 1 or 2 Starbucks trips a month or whatever your drug of choice, if you will, is. Lottery tickets or cigars or whatever that is. Just think about 1 or 2 of those, how you could apply it and literally change lives.
And literally change lives. And it's, there are so many nonprofits you can give to. I know it. There are so many worthy organizations, but this one is one where I said, you can teach a person to fish or you can just give them fish all the time.
Right.
But this is, let's teach them how to fish. And then this becomes our new community of people who are literate and learning and impacting their families. So
it really is remarkable when you walk in here and just kind of see how it's all set up and everything and what's happening. Now, is this the only location, or do you have like little satellite locations around?
We do have satellite locations. We have one on the east side at the East Side Education and Training Center. And we also have several little sites on the west side where we do mainly English as a second language, because we also have a migrant population who does not know how to speak or read English.
Yeah, because I was going to ask too, I wonder how many of your, just given the part of the country we're in and everything, that how many of your students or your clients are those that are Spanish as their first language? And
I don't know the actual percentage, but a lot of our English as a second language folks are from Afghanistan.
So not necessarily Mexico.
Not necessarily Mexico. And that program is really about having people have conversations in English so that they can get it.
Right. How often do you stay in touch with those that have come and gone through the program? And you mentioned the one, was it mother-child combo that's getting ready to finish up? But how often do you hear back and keep up with those people? Well,
we don't have a religious way of keeping track of them, but I think we're going to start.
Yeah.
Because they really are our best ambassadors. So we definitely have a few who come back and say, you just use me. You just let me come tell my story anytime you need me. But I think we could do a better job even of keeping them in our corral, if you will.
We'll have to get one of them in the car here at one point, because I think you're right. I mean, and as great as you are and everything, I think.
Well, thank you.
To get a testimonial from somebody who's literally lived it. I mean,
that would be awesome.
That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Because then you could really tell that.
Because you cannot make that up.
You can't make it up.
And again, how many of us, myself included, take reading for granted?
Exactly.
Just in everywhere you go, it's right there in front of you. But I just cannot imagine what it's like to go through life, especially as an adult,
right?
Not being able to do those things.
Right.
Yeah. Thank goodness you're here.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a few more minutes here with Tanya Henderson, the board president of Each One Teach One. So, board president in a typical day, I mean, you tutor as well, but what does that look like for you?
It's really a lot of learning on my part, so it's good that
So you're still learning.
I'm still learning how to be a good board president, and I was really surprised to find out that the major part of being on a board is really about making sure that the mission stays on track,
Right.
that you're doing strategic planning, which I carry with me from my corporate world, so that part was easy. But the hard part was really figuring out how to do the fundraising right, because I am not a person that goes out and asks people for money. It's just not.
It's not the most fun thing in the world.
It's not what I do, and I don't know who to ask. And
Right, right.
So, this is one of the venues that we're trying that's brand new to us. We hope that we can get through social media a little bit more, traction, and learning more about people who have a passion around maybe adult learners and would be grateful donors.
Well, I'm honored that you would spend some time with me here today, because I'd like to think that maybe I have a little bit of a reach. And listen, I mean, it sounds cliche, but if we can impact one person out there, or a couple people with a few extra bucks in their pocket, or feeling extra generous today, then you never know.
That's right.
Right?
That's exactly right.
And that's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. Very good. Okay, and it's your 20th anniversary this year. So you have big plans for 2024?
We are planning on having a 20th anniversary event.
Okay.
I believe it's going to be called Literacy and Libations. More to come.
I like it already.
Who doesn't like?
I like that already.
Literacy and libations together.
I support both.
Yeah, there you go. So that will likely be later in the year.
Okay.
In September, we're thinking. But the details are still being hammered out by the rest of our board members and some of the staff. So I don't have all the final details, but my friend Jonathan is working on it.
Yes, and I know Jonathan, and he's and I appreciate his support as well. I got to mention it one more time. The 1 in 4 San Antonio adults, 1 in 4, 25% read below a 5th grade level. Do you feel like you're kind of making a dent in that, or are you still, it's kind of really an uphill climb?
I think it's an uphill climb, and I think the only thing that's going to really make a dent in it is if we are able to get larger. The only way we get larger is by having more donations, so that we can have more staff. And then we can get a whole cadre of volunteer tutors, right? A lot of retired teachers come our way.
Yeah.
A lot of people who don't even need to be teachers. I wasn't.
Right.
But, I could tutor you in basic math, basic, English.
Yeah.
So, but in order to get bigger, we really have got to raise our base. Our fundraising has got to get on track.
Well, one thing we know that's getting bigger is the city. I mean, the population.
Yes, it's not getting any smaller.
That ship has sailed.
Like that ship has sailed.
So, I mean, that could potentially create more donors for you, but also more people who need to learn how to read.
Absolutely, and we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Already, we know the need is great.
Yeah.
And so, without us, I just fear where these people would fall.
Right. Okay. Well, again, we're going to appeal to everyone out there. If you just take a few seconds and think about how reading impacts your daily life, in whatever walk of life you're in, young, old, male, female, whatever that looks like to you, just take a moment and think about how we probably take reading for granted, and how it impacts your life, and what your life might be like if you did not have that.
Exactly.
And then thank goodness that there are people like Tanya here. Let's remind everybody one more time. I want to show you the logo, because I'm a visual person and I want people to see this. Each One Teach One. The website is eotosa.org. eotosa.org. And if nothing else, just go on there, spend a few minutes on the website, find out more, educate yourself about it. And then maybe when you come into a little extra money or something, or you're feeling you got money at the end of the year to give away for charitable purposes, you remember everybody here at Each One Teach One. So I want to come back at some point without all of this and just hang out with you guys. And
it would be our honor.
I just love what you're doing, and I'll say it one more time. Thank goodness you're here, because these people that are here, I mean, who knows where they would be without you.
Exactly.
So,
We're a well-kept secret, and that's not.
That's going to change.
And that's not a good thing.
No. We're gonna try. If I do anything today, it's going to be to try to get this out to people, so that they know about Each One Teach One. So it's such a pleasure to visit with you today.
It was a pleasure
and thank
being
you
here.
for what you do.
Thank you.
And keep up the great work.
All right.
All right. Each One, Teach One is the nonprofit. Tanya Henderson is the board president. And one more time, author of the book, Passion.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. All right. There's another episode of Pickup Lines presented by Gamez Law Firm, Integrity Roofing and Siding, and the Sabinal Group. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode right here. Until then, have a great day. Bye for now.